Well, today I have Amy Siress with Mercy, and tell us what it is you do.
So I am their program therapist. Our program is called Senior Life Solutions, and we are a program that does group and individual therapy with people 65 and older.
Okay, so senior focused.
Yep, only senior focused.
And so, well, let's back up even more. So you're not originally from Kingfisher.
Nope.
Where did you start?
Born in Enid, grew up, went to high school at Drummond, married someone in the military. So we traveled the world and then came back to Oklahoma. And when we landed here, I had been in nursing and decided to shift my focus since we had 3 young kids, and went back for my master's and decided on therapy. So that's how I landed in Kingfisher. I have family and friends in Kingfisher, Tennessee, so small town life is
small town girl, and
Yep.
in the 2 counties. That's pretty neat that you're able to travel the world and come home.
Yes.
Yes, I use the term "come home and make a difference."
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you did.
Yeah.
Wow. Get all that traveling stuff out of your system.
Yeah, the itchy feet. Not ready to settle down.
That's pretty funny. So, what are like some of the topics that you deal with daily?
So it's very common, senior population, for them to struggle with changes that they're going through in life. Either they're shifting from like a larger home to a smaller home, they're struggling with health problems, they've lost a friend or family member. So people most commonly come to us for symptoms of anxiety or depression, and that's kind of where we start with them. Just kind of giving them the support and the coping skills to deal with whatever's happening in their lives.
Now, do you do anything with the children of the parents?
So sometimes we will. We have some patients who family relations, complex family dynamics are an issue. And so when it's applicable and when we're able, we'll do family sessions. And a lot of times it's just focusing on helping them communicate better and understand each other a little more, just make those healthy relationships happen.
Wow. And these are, you said that you do some one-on-one and group, so describe how that works.
So depending on what their needs are, we can do a group session 1 to 3 times a week. So it would usually be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or any combination. We would start in the morning around 10 a.m. and we do 3 separate sessions and take short breaks between. So the first session we usually do just a quick check-in to see how everybody's doing, how their week has been. Are they struggling with any physical issues? How are they doing just overall? Second session when we come back, I've usually picked a topic that I think is kind of helpful for them. So it can be anything from communication skills or coping skills. Recently we did do one on like recognizing phishing scams and phone scams. So anything that I think is something that would improve their lives. Third session when we come back, I ask them to think about what we've talked about and tell me how that relates to a goal that they have in our program and how it can make their lives kind of easier, better.
Wow. And this is pretty widespread. A lot of people don't realize I'm fine. I'm a senior. I'm well past official seniorship, so maybe I need to be visiting with you. But so it's much wider spread than most people think.
It is, and I like to tell people mental health is an everybody thing. It's not just young people or old people. Like we all have things that happen in our lives, whether it's like a physical change that we're going through, or it's like an external circumstance, or just the state of the world. And when we need help with those, if we were sick, we would go to a doctor. If we're struggling emotionally and we don't have a good support system, or we just don't know how to make use of it, that's where we come in. Just give us a call, and that's our job to kind of step in and provide that support.
Wow. Things to think about.
I know, right?
When we come back, we're going to talk about fraud because it's really become a really, really big deal. Stay tuned.
From real-time transaction alerts, fraud detection, and mobile banking to full-service business banking, Interbank prides itself on bringing the people, products, and services together to help grow and develop the Kingfisher community, proudly serving over 40 communities across Texas and Oklahoma since 1987. For business, for life, for Kingfisher. Interbank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
And we're back. So, Amy, I had a conversation before you got here with a bank, and several of the banks in Kingfisher have reached out to us to help with this. And of course, the topic is fraud. And most notably senior fraud. So what are some of the things that you're seeing, you're dealing with? Because I know it's become a really, really big deal.
It has, and I think one of the problems is that seniors tend to be more trusting of people who call and tell them, hey, we have a problem with this, we need this information so that we can fix it for you. And sometimes they're particularly vulnerable to computer scams because they don't recognize the different phishing emails and it looks like a trusted source. So they think, oh, that's from my bank or that's from my mortgage lender. And so they provide all this information and then they fall victim to the scams.
And they could lose their entire life savings, their homes,
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
lots. And speaking with someone this morning on that topic, it's reoccurring. Sometimes they don't learn the first time.
Yeah. And again, sometimes that's because they've shifted it just enough that it's a different approach. And so they don't realize that you've got to look out for a wide range of things. And so they think, oh, well, it's a phone call, not an email, so that's safer, or vice versa. So just teaching them to recognize that companies that you should trust don't ever call and ask you for information. And if you're not sure, get a phone number, call back, call your bank or your provider at the number that you're used to calling them at and double check. Do you need this information?
What are some of the things you can do in therapy to help them with, because I know that some of the things that we've seen are they're afraid to tell anyone, they're ashamed that they messed up. So what are some of the discussions you have to try to get them to, I guess, admit that it happened to them? And,
So we deal with that a lot in therapy. There's a lot of things that people will be embarrassed about, or they feel like, well, I'm the only one that was, naive enough to fall for that or dumb enough to fall for that. And I hate when that happens because I always tell them it wouldn't be a scam if it didn't work. Like, there's very intelligent people, very aware people that are defrauded because they are trusting or they just didn't recognize it for what it was. So processing that and giving them that reassurance that no, it's not you, you didn't do anything wrong, and letting them know that it's happened to other people. It's one of our ladies had gone through that, and then 2 or 3 popped up and were like, oh yeah, that happened to me too.
Yeah,
So,
maybe if one in the group says, then the others open up.
Yeah, and that happens a lot with like any mental health topic. I think people really feel isolated and that they're like, well, I'm the only one that's going through this, or I'm the only one struggling with this. Everybody else does fine. And so realizing that it's everybody. Like, we all have times when we need that extra support or encouragement.
So is that the reason for group therapy sometimes, because they feed off each other? Or
It is. I find that group dynamics are really interesting because they find that they are not alone, which is really important. But also some of their strengths are someone else's weaknesses. And so they're able to kind of reach in and support, where one person needs it, and then they can turn around and help that other person in an area that they're weak in. So it's really neat to watch them develop that interaction.
Wow, that's pretty, I never thought of, I thought if I did therapy, I just want it to be one-on-one. I don't want to share with anyone, but I do understand that I'm not in this boat alone.
Yeah, and a lot of times we do have people who are very intimidated by the idea of doing a group therapy. And my reassurance to them is always, we can start with individuals so that you become comfortable with the process and kind of get to know me and I get to know you. And then I am never going to ask somebody to share something in group that they're not comfortable with.
Sure.
And so if we're talking about something and it's a sensitive area and someone says, oh, I really don't want it, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And we just keep going. There's never any pressure to just get in there and participate.
All right. Very cool. So where are you located? Are you in the main hospital or
We
in
are.
the clinic building?
We're at Mercy Hospital. If you come in that visitor entrance and just walk straight down that hall, we're right there on the left. It's our first little thing. We have a nice sign out that says Senior Life Solutions.
Know where we're going?
Yeah.
Very cool. And I'm assuming it's all by appointment.
So it is. We're available in the office 8 to 4. And so if someone wanted more information about our program, they could just come on in and see us. The really cool thing about our program, I think, is that it doesn't require a doctor's referral. So if you knew someone that was struggling, you could pass our information to them. And we've had family members who've called us and said, hey, my mom or my aunt or my brother is having a hard time and they might need some help. And so we reach out to them at that point. So anyone is welcome. They just give us a call and we'll do what we can for them.
Okay, the $1 million question. Does insurance cover any of this?
Yes, so we take all insurances. Sometimes insurances may not take us. So Medicare is what we typically deal with the 65 and older. And usually people who have that secondary insurance. We have a wonderful OPC who her whole job is to process all the insurance and answer questions about that. So if you wanted to give us a call and say, I have this insurance, she could tell you exactly what's covered.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool. I honestly didn't think that was going to be...
Yeah, people are usually surprised at that.
Yeah.
But yes, insurance does usually cover us. So
Awesome.
that's nice.
Well, Amy, it's been neat to learn about what you do, and it's local. It's right.
It is,
It's just
yes.
in Kingfisher right there, and easy to get. And
Yep.
you make it sound simple. And
It is. We try to make it easy because we want it to be accessible. That's rural areas have a really hard time with mental health providers and, for sometimes actual doctors. And so we are really passionate about making it accessible to everybody in those small communities.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out
Of
today.
course. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you. Stay tuned.